What's up, Packer fans? Welcome into Talking Pack. I am your host, Phillip Jordan, down here from Dothan, Alabama, but a big time Packers fan, and I'm excited to bring you this first official episode. If you're unaware who I am, listen out there in the world of podcast land. I am in studio host and producer of Dothan Woods Football on 96.9 The Legend in Dothan, Alabama, and also write for the Auburn Wire, but I have been a Packers fan since the 90s. Yes, if you're watching on YouTube, I'm a lot older than I look, 38 years old. I will admit, and I know he's not popular to mention right now in Packer fandom, but I became a fan of the Packers because of Brett Favre, stayed on with Aaron Rodgers, and still here with Jordan Love. I mean, you can see on YouTube the two Packer helmets right over my shoulder there. So I'm excited to bring you this podcast. This is just a passion project of mine. Just wanted to always do a Packer podcast. I kind of started one like this a couple years, probably 2 years ago. It was going to be called Talking Packers, and just fell off just to some other obligations I had. I just could not keep it going weekly. And I said I'm not just going to do this sporadic. If I can't go weekly or bi-weekly or something like that, I'm not going to do it. Now I altered the name a little bit from Talking Packers to Talking Pack for this reason. That is the Packers name. That is a copyrighted licensed name. I know other people do it. So I just to keep myself safe, I went Talking Pack just so I don't get a nice little letter or anything from the NFL or the Packers. So that's what we got here. I'm gonna be coming to you once or twice a week. I'll give my thoughts on the Packer game during the season, any news as well. And another plan I do, have guests. Hope to have some Packer fans or people who cover the Packers here on the show. Also, we'll try to reach out and have interviews with the someone that covers the Packers' upcoming opponent. That will be another thing we will do here on the show. We're going to have a good show here today. I'm going to recap the Lions win for the Packers, dominating win for the Packers over the Lions, and also be joined by Bryan Manning, who is the managing editor of the Commanders Wire. Obviously, Packers on tonight on Thursday, as this podcast is being released, they will be playing the Washington Commanders on Thursday Night Football. So we will look at the Commanders, preview that matchup with him. So that'd be a lot of fun. And then after that conversation, we will also talk about. I give my thoughts for that game. This podcast right now initially will just be on YouTube, but I will have this thing moving around on all your podcast platforms, especially Apple Podcasts and Spotify, the main two. So let's jump into it. Packers defeated the Lions 27-13. Dominant win, 13th consecutive home opener win for the Packers. And this was a big win for multiple reasons. When do you want to start season 1-0? Get that momentum. Last year, the game in Brazil against the Eagles, the Packers lost and also lost Jordan Love a few weeks. I mean, Malik Willis came in and played well, and the Packers stayed afloat. They got on a run. But the Packers never seemed right after that first game against the Eagles last year. Getting an opening win just like this against a really good team in the Lions was very important for the Packers to do. Winning a division game. The Packers were 1-5 in the division last year, and they barely beat the Bears. And now one win they did have, and losing to the Bears is never good. Enjoyed seeing Minnesota come back on them with JJ McCarthy on Monday night. But anyways, the Packers last year they were outscored by their division opponents 99-40. It was not pretty in division. The Packers just did not play well. Uh, I would say this, just kind of overall what I saw from the game. The offensive line protected Jordan Love really well, and this one allowed 0 sacks in the game. He only got hit twice. He was 16-22 for 188, 2 touchdowns. Like I said, 0 sacks. He spread the ball out really well. I really liked what I saw of the offense from the passing game. Uh, 10 different players caught a pass in the game. I think that all the receivers, most of them got some play. Romeo Dobbs did seem like the target there, and Kraft, only 2 catches for Matthew Golden. You would think a lot of people are hoping he just would go all first game. It's going to take time for the rookie defense played well, sacked Jared Goff 4 times, and then the Lions are going to move the ball. They're a talented team. Goff is a good quarterback. I mean, they're going to move the ball, but the key was the Packers held them out of the end zone mostly until the very end of the game. And when the Lions did move the ball and get in the red zone, holding them to field goals, and then the Packers were scoring touchdowns. Always a big thing. I do like college stuff, but the NFL possessions are, in my opinion, very, very, very valuable because you don't get as many of them as you do maybe in the college game. So you got to take advantage of the ones you have. So when you're scoring touchdowns and field goals, it's a big difference just because both teams could be moving the ball well. It's kind of like, the Packers opponent, the Commanders. They beat the Giants 21-6, but you turn two field goals into touchdowns, that's 21-14, different ball game. It's just kind of how it is with that. It's just how the game of football works. But sacked Jared Goff 4 times. When they got in the red zone, held on the field goals till the very end there. And also had an interception too as well. And then held them to 46 yards rushing. So Detroit was very one dimensional. I thought the Packers secondary played well in the fact that they did not give up anything big. That was another thing. Not any really big momentum changing plays for them. So that was very important for the Packers there. Michael Parsons has a sack. Now you saw his impact on the Packers' first possession defensively. On third down, he came in. Jared Goff probably had a receiver open over the middle, but because of the presence of Michael Parsons, he was flushed out, and then the play didn't work out for the Lions. Had to punt 3 and out there, and that was just the impact that Michael Parsons had. Not just him getting sacks. He wasn't out there for a lot of plays, but when he was out there, he played well. I think the Packers' overall defense played well too. Lucas Van Ness played well. I mean, this defense has a lot of good players on it, and now with Parsons, obviously he goes to your top. He's your number one ranked defensive player. But then you got these other guys. Yeah, they dropped down, but now you got a lot more key players with this defense that can really make plays for the Packers. Edgerrin Cooper had 12 tackles in a game, and no Nate Hobbs. And I was worried about the secondary, but I think they held up pretty well in the game. And then also, you look, you got Javon Bullard on this team, Quay Walker, Rashawn Gary, Xavier McKinney. Kobe Wooden played well. He stepped into the Kenny Clark position there. Of course, he was part of the deal. Got sent to Dallas and then 2 draft picks, 2 tackles for loss. He played really well. That was a question mark coming in. So the Packers getting that play from the defense was very important. They did run the ball great in the game, but at the end of the game, they got some yardage, key yardage, kind of chewing up some clock. And of course, Josh Jacobs got a touchdown. The fast start, going up 17-3 early on. First possession, 12 play, 83-yard drive. He had some big passes, did Jordan Love, the Romeo Dawes, and Dontavian Wicks. And then they hit the pass to Tucker Kraft. It was a beautiful pass to a perfect throw from Jordan Love because you had the linebacker kind of chasing Tucker, and you also had the safety behind him, and Jordan Love just dropped it in the right spot, touchdown. It was a beautiful throw by him. And again, the protection was great. I mean, he did not really get flushed out much, and he didn't really feel much pressure, and that's what you want in that situation. Now, the Packers, like I said, forced a 3 and out. They go down and they kick a field goal, and then next up, that's when the Lions, they got their field goal, obviously, 10-3. And then, but the Jaden Reed touchdown after a Romeo Dobbs big play there, set all that at 48-yard catch by him, 17 yards, touchdown for Jaden Reed. Packers up 17-3, and you're feeling good. You're feeling good. Then the Packers hold them out once again, and then later in the third quarter, the Lions do get that field goal, make it 17-6, and then of course they put it away with the 3-yard touchdown by Josh Jacobs, and again, the Lions scored late, make it 27-13. It makes the game look a little bit closer than it actually was if you're just looking at the scoreboard. If you look at the stats too, if you didn't look at the scoring summary, you just look at the stats. Okay, Packers, 2 touchdowns. It was more than that. The Packers dominated the game, and that was big for them. And then the Packers, obviously, the Eagles are still the favorite after beating the Cowboys in the NFC. But after what we saw this weekend, yes, okay, the Packers got to be up there right now after week 1. We overreacted to all this stuff. And a lot of adjustments going to be made from all these teams after week 1. And really, as the thing is said, NFL, it really feels like week 1 is kind of like a preseason. Teams are kind of figuring out what's going on because you don't play like stars in the preseason. So the first month is kind of an adjustment period for a lot of these teams. But week 1, you look at the Packers, what they did against the Lions, that should give you some very positive thoughts. Now that we're going to Washington, they did a really good job against the Giants. It was their run game. Russell Wilson was the leading rusher in that game, which that's Russell Wilson. He's really fallen off. I think if you're the Giants, it's just time. Just put Jackson Dart in there, or I think he would have been better off keep James Winston as your starter quarterback instead of Russell Wilson. But that's just me. So it's going to be interesting Thursday night. Quick turnaround. I just don't see these teams going to throw a lot of new stuff out there just because it's a short week. But the positive thing is after this, you get like basically a week and a half off before the Packers will have to play the Cleveland Browns. And Green Bay will be at home, which is a benefit in these short weeks as well. Quick news before we jump into Bryan Manning, bring him on the show to get a better look at the Washington Commanders. They extended Christian Watson for 1 year. Of course, he's rehabbing. He's not back yet. A torn ACL injury in January. You can't expect to see him at some point this year, but now the Packers are not going to rush. Now, he don't have to rush because there's not that, okay, I got to get back because I'm in a contract year. Now that you got that extension, it kind of gives you time to kind of really take your time on making sure you're right. Of course, when he's right, when he's healthy, he can stretch the field for the Packers. Last year, 29 catches, 20 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He has had injury problems. That's been a big thing with Christian Watson. So we'll have to see how that goes moving forward. But Packers, don't have to rush for him. The receivers played well on Sunday, as long as they stay healthy with Wicks, Dobbs, Reed. You expect Golden to do some more things there. You got Josh Jacobs in the passing game, and then also another deal there, Tucker Craft at tight end. I think Tucker's going to be a Pro Bowl tight end this year. Uh, he's going to be big. I think he's going to be one of the best tight ends in the league this year. That's going to be something I call. And then the more and more they get to play Michael Parsons and he gets acclimated more to the Packers and everything going and how they're going to use him when he's really out there more on a regular basis, not just, here and there, a few snaps, I saw a report that he lobbied for some more playing time. Kind of be interested to see how much he plays Thursday night. Again, as I mentioned, quick turnaround. So that'll be something there to look out for with that. All right, now I'm going to point my conversation with Bryan Manning. He is the managing editor of the Commanders Wire. Let's get a look at this Thursday night matchup to kick off week 2 in the NFL. All right, as promised at the top of the show, we are now going to preview the Packers and the Commanders for Thursday night football. And joining me is Bryan Manning. You can check him out. He's the managing editor over at the Commanders Wire and also site manager at Gobbler Country, which is Virginia Tech coverage. And Bryan, appreciate you coming on.
Hey, Phillip. Thanks for having me. Always good to talk to you.
Oh, yeah, glad to have you on. As I told you off air, starting this pod, I saw the Packers were playing the Commanders. I was like, got to have a guy, Bryan, on the show. And just looking at this team coming off of last year, I think it made the playoffs, which is a success in its own right with a rookie quarterback. Jaden Daniels, the year he had, and then obviously the run they went on in the playoffs, getting to the NFC Championship game. Obviously, that didn't go the way the fans wanted to there in Washington with the Commanders, but just the excitement level for this team coming into the season, knowing what they did last year.
There's not been anything like it. I think the closest time in this lifetime was 2012. The year they had RG3, and I think that's where a lot of the RG3 comparisons come to, which are bogus. I mean, they're totally different. But that year felt like a flash in the pan because they had to win 7 straight games to get into playoffs. Where last year, I mean, they won a lot of close games. They also were whipping people too, and the fans just finally, because for years the fans were, it was anytime you talked about Washington, it was a joke. I mean, a lot of the fans had quit. Even the fans that stuck by had something cute to say about them. It was just and this year, the Jaden jerseys flew off. The Jaden jerseys going crazy off the shelf. I always knew once they found the right guy, the quarterback, things would change. And boy, was that right.
Yeah, because it seemed like a while. Even look, I'm Alabama, but just following the league, there's just always so much bad stuff around the franchise, and then obviously the winning wasn't there, and now you have this. And just Jaden Daniels. When you look at him coming in year 2, what for you were some things you wanted to see from him? That look, he had a great year. I still remember that Monday. I believe it was a Monday night game against the Bengals last year where he just lit it up. And I said, this is the guy I saw at LSU lighting up the SEC for 2 years. But as you look, of course, with all rookies, got to improve on some things. What are some things you thinking he needed to improve on for this year?
From looking on the outside, I don't really know how much he had to improve on. He, of course, him being a perfectionist and a competitor, there's things that he thought he had to work on, and I think intermediate passing was one thing he said he wanted to work on. And if you watch the Giants the other day, he was cooking them in the intermediate game. Now, what's crazy is they won that game by 15 points. They dominated that game, and Jaden was off. I mean, that's how far he is. That when he was just off a little bit, they still dominated his presence. I mean, They had 400 some yards rushing, and I saw Jay Gruden say something the other day, the ex-Washington coach, that they wouldn't have had a first down without him, even his presence. I mean, that's just who he is, and it's right. I mean, he was a little bit off, like he missed Terry McLaurin on a deep ball, which they'll hit next time, but it, I think he thought the intermediate passing game was the thing he wanted to work on. But from an outsider perspective, I mean, he just looks the part all the time.
Yeah, I know a big offseason discussion was Terry McLaurin. Was he going to be back, and how much of an impact he makes on that team? How big is he really to what they do?
Well, Terry was always going to mean more to Washington than he was to anyone else. So that's not saying he's not a top 10 receiver. I see all these lists debating him. You can put whoever you want. He's not one of the top 5 guys. We know that, but he makes a case for the top 10. He's been doing it for years with bad quarterback play, but no, Terry, on the field, locker room, off the field, Terry's importance to that team is it's unparalleled. And they got Debo Samuel, which helped Terry out quite a bit. We saw that the other day. But Terry's importance is he can do anything. He can run your deep routes. He's your deep guy. He's your number one guy. He's just and then he quickly bonded with Jaden, and they grew that's why he's a great guy, and they wanted to keep him, but they understood his importance to Jaden, and they didn't want to disrupt that. So they were always going to get something done.
Yeah, that's the thing. You see some teams are like that. He may not be the number one guy somewhere else, but he's their number one guy, and just how it just makes everything work. You mentioned, yeah, they beat the Giants 21-6 on Sunday. And it's the thing. I always say with the NFL versus college, there's so few more possessions. In the NFL game, just the way it's played and just the way the game runs. And you look at 21-6, and just those stops in the red zone or right there at the goal line, because the Giants had opportunities to get on the board, but Washington was able to hold them off.
Yeah, the defense was great. It was so good the other day, and they made a conscious upgrade to get bigger inside, and they went out and they got Javon Kinlaw and as a starter, and Eddie Goldman in relief, and they got Dietrich Wise on the edge. They got bigger, and all those guys made contributions on Sunday. That defensive effort on Sunday, was as close to a team effort as you're going to find. I mean, I can't single out one guy who stood out. I mean, everybody played well, and
Mm-hmm.
the corners did a good job against Malik Neighbors. It was a great effort. The pass rush was insane.
Yeah, and one thing too, in 2025, if Russell Wilson is your leading rusher on your football team, that is not a good sign, and that's what happened. Russell Wilson was the number one guy. 10 years ago, you could get away with that. 2025, not so much.
I think it's sad when Russell Wilson's your quarterback in 2025, but
I think they would have been better. I think I'm just waiting for when Jackson Dart takes over. I mean, I think he's going to be eventual. And also, I even said this in the open of the show. I think they may have been better off with Jameis Winston as the quarterback versus Russell Wilson.
yeah. Jameis is hot and cold, but I mean, I take that over kind of what Russ gives you. I mean, they didn't have a lot of time. The offensive line for them was bad the other day, but I don't think Russ at this stage of his career gives you a good chance.
And Debo Samuel, he had the touchdown late. They really put the game away. I mean, even just watching the condensed version on NFL Plus, I never felt like, it seemed like Washington would have been in danger in that game. It was one of the things where, yeah, you're up by 8, but it just doesn't feel like you're in danger. You're winning the game. You're the better team. But Debo Samuel getting that touchdown, 19-yard touchdown, kind of put the game away with about 7 minutes left. What was your takeaway from just his kind of regular season debut with the Commanders?
It couldn't have gone any better. I mean, he impacted the game. He impacted the rushing game. He impacted the passing game. Excuse me, he got his hand on a couple that he should have caught probably. I told you Jaden was a little bit off on ball placement, but Debo had a couple of maybe 2 on his hands, but he had 77 yards, 7 catches, both led the team. He had the 19-yard touchdown run. Just his presence on the field, they have to account for. They don't know what he's going to do. He's going to come motion. He's going to get the ball in the backfield. I mean, he's just such a weapon, and then he produced on top of it. So I love that addition, and it gives the Packers defense a little something extra to prepare for this week on a short week.
Yeah, that's the thing I said to when we get to the game. I said when you've been on a short week, especially in the NFL, most teams ain't gonna be throwing anything new out there at you. You just don't have the time to put it in. The run game, 220 yards on the ground. Jaden Daniels had 68 of those, but Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt had 82. Of course, Austin Eckler there as well. What was your takeaway from kind of a combination of run game and offensive line?
Offensive line's a work in progress, but it's going to be really good. You had Laramie Tunzel and Josh Connerly to the mix, and Brandon Coleman moves over to guard, and then they'll get Sam Cosmi back soon. So it's a situation where they're still gelling together because offensive line play takes time, but
Mm-hmm.
wasn't a terrible day. They gave some pressures. Run blocking was pretty good, but as far as the running backs, you love this group because Chris Rodriguez didn't even play, and Chris Rodriguez is good back.
Mm-hmm.
But Krosky Merritt's a guy who would have been a higher pick had he not been screwed over by the NCAA. Um,
No,
he's
they wouldn't do that to anybody.
Oh no, he's just a electric runner. He's got great vision. Dan Quinn talked about his violent cuts, and you could see that a couple of times in that game. And he came out and they've loved him all along. I mean, they knew all along throughout camp that Brian Robinson wasn't going to make that team because they loved Krosky Merritt so much, and they were happy with Chris Rodriguez's. He reshaped his body in the offseason, and they were impressed with that. And Eckler was always going to be there. So, and McNichols is a guy whose values on special teams. He does everything well. He can fill in as a pass catching back for Eckler. He's a great in pass protection. He's good on special teams. So it's just a very dynamic and Krosky Merritt's going to get the headlines now because he's got a cool story, cool nickname, but it's a it's a it's a good group, really is.
So turning it over to Thursday night, of course, tonight, if you're listening to the podcast, the Packers and the Commanders be at Lambeau Field. Both teams coming off wins. Packers coming off a 27-13 victory over the Lions. That game wasn't that close either. I mean, Lions without last minute score. Just going into it, just overall, kind of what was your takeaway from the Packers win over the Lions on Sunday?
The Lions are going to miss Ben Johnson, and I think Ben Johnson's going to miss the Lions too. But that's another story for another day. But no, I don't think that Jared Goff is a quarterback who kind of needs his hand held from the sides of it. His best success was with McVay and with Johnson, somebody who had defined reads, simplified things for him. And the Packers ate him alive. I mean, they just, and then once they did that, I mean, they took him out of the game. The run, I mean, it was a dominant performance. It was similar to Washington's performance. I think Green Bay's performance was more impressive because it was against a better team. But you can see the mirrors. The numbers were similar as what their defenses did on Sunday. So I don't know. It's weird for me now after seeing Washington last year, thinking it's going to be a defensive battle on Thursday. But being early in the season too, and knowing the defenses are playing well going into this game, I think it's going to be a defensive battle.
So obviously the Packers made splash before the season and picked up Michael Parsons, who Washington is familiar with from his time in Dallas. I was looking at last year against Washington. He had 4.5 sacks, 12 tackles overall, which was 1-1. Dallas 1-1, Washington 1-1. How was the way that Washington usually dealt with him when he was with Dallas that you could remember?
Well, in the past, they really had a they never really had a left. They haven't had a left tackle, a quality left tackle. And I'm not disrespecting some of the guys who played it. Veterans like Cornelius Lucas did a good job. Coleman did a good job last year out of position, but they got Laramie Tunzel now. So it's a little easier to put Laramie Tunzel in there and say, get their best passers, even though Mike is going to line up on both sides. But they they never dealt with Parsons well, I'll tell you that. And that was before last year. Like last year, I think some of those sacks were a little misconceiving because it was a lot of it was Jaden, trying to get out of the pocket a little bit. It wasn't so much just got crushed in the backfield. But Micah, what a phenomenal player. And, Dan Quinn knows him well too from, being his favorite coach. So um, I don't know if there's a specific way they've dealt with him. Like I said, he has 12.5 sacks against Washington in his career. 10.5 sacks, which is the most against anybody. So they haven't done a good job with him. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, and the thing is with him, you don't really know how much he's going to play on Thursday night because he's still dealing with the injury thing. Which I think, just speaking from the Packers side of things, I think they've got plenty of good defensive players. Now the secondary is something I'm concerned with them just because Nate Hobbs is hurt. Jair Alexander, of course, that they let him go during the off season, which he was always injured anyways. Um, do you see that maybe potentially a spot where Washington could attack Green Bay is through the secondary with their passing game?
I think so. I think that's what they're going to have to do, and I think it's going to be. Um, I think Terry's going to have a bigger game than he had the other day. I don't know that Terry's going to go 100 yards tomorrow night, but I think he's going to have a big play, or they're going to try for a big play or two. And that is definitely a weak. And with the thing when they try to get him with the passing game, they better have an answer for that pass rush. And I think that's where having a guy like Jaden is different because he's a little bit of a cheat code.
Yeah.
Um, when you've got great rushing teams, so he can kind of get out and buy a little bit of time if his offensive line can't hold the blocks. But yeah, I do think the secondary is an area they may look to exploit.
Yeah, there's a big difference in the mobility of Jared Goff versus Jaden Daniels for sure.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, Goff, I mean, he's through. If he gets any kind of pressure, anybody back there with him, he's pretty much done for. On the other side, though, when you see the Washington defense versus the Packers offense, the Packers offense line protected Jordan Love really well. I thought he didn't get sacked, only got hit twice. They could get the run game going with Josh Jacobs to late. What are your kind of thoughts or takeaways from that matchup of the Washington defense versus the Packers offense?
I think in writing about this game ahead of time, my key for the defense was to stop Josh Jacobs first and make Jordan Love beat you. I know he's done it some. I know some people still have questions about him. I think he's a good player, but that's still the key to beating him. To make those receivers beat you on the outside. I know they're dealing with some injuries at receiver.
Mhm.
More beat up. Guys are beat up, but they need to make those guys win. But basically, number one is sell out to stop Josh Jacobs, and then go from there.
Yeah, I feel like for them, a lot of their right now because they are beat up. I mean, Jaden Reed's playing, but he's beat up, and then of course, Christian Watson's not playing, and then they got some injuries at other spots at receivers. Tucker Craft right now, I think, is kind of like a mismatch thing they're trying to use, especially if they can get the run game going. Because if he stays healthy, I think that's a big weapon for them.
Yeah, and right now we don't know who's going to cover a tight end for Washington right now. And they lost Jeremy Chin in the offseason. Will Harris replacement played great the other day, so that's another test too. Is we're going to find out who's going to cover the tight ends because I believe that'll be Jordan Love's. I think it'll be his best weapon on Thursday.
So I'm going to put you on the spot here. What do you think happens on Thursday night?
Washington's on the road on a short week. I think these teams are much more evenly matched than a lot of people want to admit. But I'm going to give the edge to the Packers because they're at home on a short week, and so I'm going to say it's going to be a 3-point win for Green Bay. Probably is what I would predict.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that, and I just think it will be low scoring because both defenses played well last week, and like a short week early in the season because really the first month of the season feels like an extended preseason, anyways. Because the offense is usually slow because the guys the starters don't play much in the preseason like they used to.
Mm-hmm.
Moving past the game because the next 4 games for Washington will be at home against the Raiders, at the Falcons, at the Chargers, and then they will play the Bears. Just overall, when you look at this team past this game, what do you see as the ceiling for the Commanders?
The ceiling, I think, is they can win the NFC East. It's the ceiling. Do I think they're necessarily going to win the NFC East? I didn't predict them to win the East before the season. I think the Eagles are still the class of the division, but I think they closed the gap some in the offseason. But the Eagles are just really good, and I think this is a 10 win team probably. I think it's been said that they can improve. They're going to be a better team this year, but win less games. And I think that's true. I mean, they had some things break for them last year. That's not going to break for them this year. So I think they are a better team. They will be a better team this year, but they may not win as many games, but they'll still be around the playoffs. And you get Jaden Daniels in the playoffs, he'll be a tough out.
I got one more question for you. This is a surprise one. So if you don't answer, we can just edit this part out of the podcast. I mentioned at the top, Gobbler Country, Virginia Tech coverage. No, not a great start for Virginia Tech, but I want to throw a question out for you. Since Virginia Tech met both these teams, and I said this week in college football, sneaky game is Vanderbilt and South Carolina. Obviously, Virginia Tech seen both of them. Who do you think wins that game?
Um, Obviously, watching both of those games the last 2 weeks, um, Virginia Tech gave South Carolina a battle. It was close to the end. I mean, they South Carolina pulled it away in the fourth quarter on a long pass, a punt return, and then a long pass. But it was a close game. Tech, I was actually encouraged by what I saw from Tech's defense that day, and then I watched the second half last week, and I just threw everything out the window. So, but if I'm looking at the two quarterbacks, I'm sitting there thinking, which one's a Heisman contender? It's the Norris Sellers has all the hype. Diego Pavia is a better player. I'm not saying he has the higher ceiling or anything like that, or he'll be an NFL player. But if I'm watching a college quarterback right now, I'm taking Diego Pavia, and it will not shock me if Vandy wins this weekend.
Yeah, and just speaking from someone, of course, one of my other gigs is also the Auburn Wire. Hugh Freeze was never beaten that quarterback as a 0-3 versus Diego Pavia in his career. So even back at Liberty. But anyways, I know I had you. I know Virginia Tech. I know it hadn't been the start everybody wants with them, but I too with those two teams playing this Saturday. And Bryan, it's been a lot of fun having you on, talking all things Commanders. Like I said, when I saw the Packers playing them, I knew who I was going to reach out to get that side of things. And if the listener, viewers want to check it online, where can they find you?
You can follow me over at commanderswire.com, gobblercountry.com for Virginia Tech coverage, or you can follow me on Twitter at Bryan, BRYAND Manning.
All right, Bryan, appreciate it. Thank you for coming on and talking all things Commanders.
Hey, Phillip, glad to talk to you, man.